What up? All my scientists, my artists, my philosophers, my geneticists, my roboticists, my biologists, my archaeologists, my astronomers. Let's get busy. This has been Busy from the Burst. Chip.
One. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Busy, broadcasting to you from Osaka, Japan. I'm joined by my co-host, XJ. What's up, XJ?
Not much. Just chilling.
No doubt. Like a villain.
Time killing,
Time killing, blood spilling on the ceiling like Bob Dylan. Oh, chilling like a villain. Hey, what's going on with these podcasts, man? So we have like pre-existing radio architecture or solutions for the dissemination of knowledge, but now we have the advent of the internet. Why does commercial radio still exist? Why does extraterrestrial radio still exist in companies like Sirius? And when is it going to change?
I really think that the problem is that there isn't enough internet built into cars yet. Once cars have 4G and everybody can just stream off, once they have, Spotify and what's the other one? Pandora?
Yeah, Pandora.
And then there's a few other ones. And what's going to happen is there's basically going to be a tablet integrated into your dashboard, right? Mm-hmm. That's just going to happen.
Like
and
it
probably
Tesla.
Already is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once all that stuff is seamlessly integrated into automobiles and, there's public Wi-Fi everywhere too. I think that that's something. But I don't know anybody who listens to terrestrial radio except for in their car.
Yeah, really, I don't know anyone except maybe like on a lot of military bases, and this is going to be a very small demographic, but
right.
They have short band like local AM transmission of like local radio station, and but that's such a small demographic. Very few people in the future, I think, will be listening to radio. You have seen like an attempted resurgence in what they called HD radio. I don't know if you ever listened to this.
I did because it was built into the Zune HD.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a now defunct device because Microsoft.
Sweet
Yeah, that thing was more powerful than the iPod, but Microsoft said no third-party apps, and which is the most colossal blunder I think I've ever heard of in a portable device. But
yeah, that ruins it.
And it was bizarre.
So much potential.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that they were pushing Windows phones at the time, and they were worried.
Yes.
And it was Yeah,
that's what it was.
I think, though, that as far as satellite radio goes, I have this sneaking suspicion that subcontractors listening to sports talk radio all day is keeping them afloat.
Sports talk radio, that's where it is, right? And
yeah,
like your normal talk radio, like Rush Limbaugh, like characters, Or
well, yeah,
he's
on terrestrial, right?
Yeah,
those are terrestrial, but those are AM. Right?
Yeah, AM.
AM is much cheaper to run, I think, from what I remember.
Yeah, the energy requirements are much lower.
Right. And it's got a much farther reach, I think, on lower frequencies. Like, the signal doesn't deteriorate as quickly.
Right. So there's that. But, like, okay, so commercial radio is still kind of alive in, like, you have some of these broadcasters who've broken off from their terrestrial stations, and maybe they went to Sirius. And then maybe Sirius fired them. Not saying anyone in particularly, but Opie and Anthony.
Yeah.
They're charging for a network, or like someone like Maron, who I can't fucking stand his fucking voice. That guy charges people to listen to his old podcasts.
Right.
Is there a future for this? Like, I don't see how this business model is sustainable once all of your fans die. You're not going to bring any new people on.
Right. It's that insular thing. And that's the thing is that, Anthony Cumia might be able to write off subscriptions from O&A fans now, but it just doesn't work because I can just steal his show.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so, and if I still see the ad revenue that you get from like MeUndies and stuff like that, makes it not matter if people pirate your show.
Right.
Duh.
Why wouldn't they go with ad-based revenue model as opposed to a subscription base is beyond me, and I'll never understand it. And I think that this is like the last stand for the terrestrial or like whatever extraterrestrial satellite radio people. That your typical like standard means of disseminating broadcast to people. I think this subscription-based nonsense, that's it. That's the last stand. And then eventually, you know, your Howard Sterns and your Opie and Anthony's, they're just going to die. They're going to die out.
I mean, think about this. Think about what I get off Netflix for $8 a month versus what Anthony Cumia wants me to pay $5 for. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here with your little fucking... Get out of here with your little fucking radio show. Your little fucking funny broadcast. Now, don't get me wrong. I fucking love Anthony Cumia and fucking Opie and Anthony show. Right. And Jim Norton. I like all those guys. But
why are they putting handcuffs on themselves? And not just...
I don't know.
And it's a content handcuff, too.
Right.
Because they're like... because Joe Rogan's sponsor is Fleshlight. I mean, you know, this is interesting, right?
He used to have that sponsor. I think that sponsor got dropped.
I think it's because he had them for too long, and he decided to switch. He said that he didn't want to keep sponsors for too long, so eventually he'll rotate out MeUndies. Because, you know, it does get obnoxious hearing the same three companies over and over and over again.
Yeah, it does. Like Calacanis, the This Week in Startups guy, he's runs the same pre-recorded ads that he's had for like over a year now.
Right.
And it's just like, come on, really?
Yeah, and here's the thing. You're going to find this fascinating because earlier today I was doing some historical research and I was looking at the fight that the television industry put up to not allow people to record stuff on their VCRs to make them play only devices.
Lol.
Because they're like, we're going to lose all this revenue. People are just going to fast forward through all the commercials. And I'm like, well, buddy, I can just go get a drink in the other room and not watch your commercials anyway.
Right, exactly.
And there's no statistical evidence so far as I could find that would back that up. And here's the thing, in spite of all the piracy, movie ticket sales are at an all-time high. Right. Music sales are at an all-time high. I find so much music on YouTube that I never would have heard before. What was that? I heard an argument yesterday. I can't remember if it was on it might have been on Rogan or it might have been on No, it wasn't. It was on Joey Diaz.
Okay.
Because they were talking about like the Eddie Bravo Invitational and stuff that, and about how companies were or no, it wasn't that one. It was a different one. He was talking about it was a parent company didn't want somebody putting their clips on YouTube because they thought that they were losing revenue, that people wouldn't go watch the stand-up comedian show. I think it was about a Ari had with Comedy Central.
Wait a minute, who was that? I just remember hearing that.
I think it was on Joey Diaz. Yeah. Are you sure?
Yeah, it was on Rogan's show that they were talking about it. I forget who he was interviewing, though. Oh, it was Bert Kreischer. It was talking about Ari Shaffir.
That's what it was. Okay.
Not being able to put shit on to YouTube, and Comedy Central would have them pull it, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, same thing with, like, Anthony Cumia. Like, the fact that he's handcuffing himself to the subscription model and not allowing people to even post anything on YouTube, like clips or whatever, means that he's essentially de-viralizing himself, his ability. Right. He's like removing the ability to go viral from his arsenal, which is just retarded.
I mean, doesn't his firing show that he's incapable of handling social media and the internet to begin with?
It does, doesn't it? He's like basically...
that guy needs a handler. He needs to hire a handler.
Right, yeah. This guy.
I feel like Joe Rogan should write a book on the model of podcasting in the future, this stuff, he'd probably make more money than he has combined right now.
I mean, let's look at it, right? Because we looked at it before we got started in the show, but the listeners don't know. Rogan, who is strictly ad-based, and then he's kind of smart to do it, right? So this is what you do. If you want to become successful in podcasts, what you do is this. You do like Rogan does. You have your ad-based revenue that you say at the beginning of the broadcast, which we'll probably adopt here in the next coming months. You have the ad-based revenue, and then you have a subsidiary company that you own like a significant amount of stock in, or that you're a significant investor in, a la On It, and then
Right.
you just serve customers to On It or to your subsidiary at the beginning of each podcast. That way, you're making money on both ends, right? As opposed to fucking, and you don't monetize anything else. That's it. Like, everyone can look at every single episode of your podcast whenever the fuck they want, as opposed to fucking dumbass Marc Maron, fucking whiny, like, disaffected, angry old guy. And you can basically charge people a subscription fee to fucking listen to your old podcast. Who gives a shit about your old podcast?
I mean, you know what? He's kind of the in-between.
Yeah, he is the in-between.
He's not as bad.
No,
right?
Kumier and fucking Opie and Anthony, they're the worst because they're completely behind a paywall. And it's like, you guys are dumb. Now, instead of making, some money a lot of the time, you're making a little money some of the time. And
do
then,
you know who? Oh, sorry. I thought
go
you were
ahead.
done.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
No, I was gonna say, do you know who the absolute biggest idiot is?
Hold on, let me
behind
think.
the paywall.
Let me think. Wait a minute.
Who do you think?
You're talking
who do you
about?
think who do you think shoots themselves in the foot the most with paywall?
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Let me think about this. Are we talking specifically about podcasts?
Yes.
Howard Stern.
Well, no, I mean who has a podcast who's shooting themselves in the foot with a paywall. Because Howard Stern is getting paid like $150 million a year, no matter what.
Yeah.
So he's not going to quibble over. But
Hold on.
no.
Let me think about this for a second. So, who are the main players? Like, are we talking?
This is something that would be. This would be probably the number one podcast if it wasn't 2/3 behind the paywall.
Are you talking about Adam Carolla?
No. Adam Carolla is not behind a paywall.
He's not behind a paywall, is he? He's ad-based, right? But he does the ads, like, in the middle of the interview.
Right.
Like
he doesn't
douchebag.
Well, he does segments. He has, like, a segmenty type show, which is, like, conducive to that, I guess.
Oh, he's so fancy. He's got segments. Like, I'm so
but it
tired of
breaks
the
up
old
the
model.
show.
Yeah, I understand, like, how it works and everything from a theory perspective or theoretical perspective, but it's like such old model dinosaur bullshit. It's like, dude, Adam Carolla, just fucking retire. Just shut the fuck up. You want to be Gilbert Gottfried. Like, he's basically Gilbert Gottfried's ill-begotten son, isn't he? He's like his lost progeny, right?
Yeah.
He is. Like, they're basically related. And, like, with all due respect to Gilbert Gottfried, yeah, sure, he's a fucking comic genius or whatever, but it's so old guard, man. These people need to fucking die off or get out of the fucking way and make room for some fucking new blood. It's so tiring to have to deal with.
They're gonna get forced off the road.
That's what's going to. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Either transform yourself or be fucking fucked. Like, those are your two choices. Who is the person that's shooting themselves in the foot the most?
The Young Turks.
The Turks are behind a fucking paywall, but they do all that YouTube stuff.
You only get the first hour.
You get tons of content on YouTube. I don't really care to listen to Cenk Uygur, like, talk for fucking an hour. I'm sorry, I'll be frank. Like, he gets kind of repetitive and he's kind of annoying after a while. I like the YouTube clips. I can take him in small doses, like espresso shots of Cenk, but I can't take too much of it. Like,
well, he has there's an awful lot going on with the Young Turks, and only the first hour of his podcast, which are like a lot of the non-substantive things that they talk about. And they have a whole bunch of shows and stuff like that. that are hidden behind that, and
That's just dumb. I mean,
it is, especially from someone who's like relies on new media because doesn't have a TV station anymore, right?
let me tell you, this is my theory. This is what's happening with the Young Turks, okay? So Cenk Uygur, who was I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm probably not. Whatever. He started his podcast or whatever. He started his little thing. Like, this used to be just like really kind of like, in your dad's garage type of shit. Like, he wasn't in this state of the art, like, basically Daily Show quality studio, and like he didn't have any of that, right? He was just kind of you might be able to give more background on him. But then what happened was this: outside investors saw him as a potential, source of revenue. He got a lot of money to pay for that brand new studio, and now he's got these finance minders behind the scenes who are like, you got to do subscription base. You got to do subscription base. This is the model. This is how it works. You got to do subscription base. Meanwhile, like, those guys are idiots, and he should be doing ad-based revenue and should be allowing or releasing all of his content for free on the internet. But he's not. He hasn't transformed. The reason why it's not that way is because he got all these big-name investors to drop a ton of money into him to make him, a little show, and now they still control it. They're still controlling the money, or the way the money's coming in.
See, here's the worst part about it, is that it's more politically that he's shooting himself in the foot than financially, I think, because he's trying to form a super PAC that's all grassroots, called the Wolf Pack or something like that. Have you heard about this?
That? Yeah, the Wolf Pack, right?
Right, which is an interesting concept, but man, you're not reaching people. What?
Right, yeah, exactly. It's like you're shooting yourself in the foot, like you said. Like, if you're going to do the whole subscription-based model, then don't front like you're reaching the masses when you're obviously not. You're reaching who subscribes to you. And let's be honest, like, this whole subscription-based thing is kind of like it's a testament to their egos as entertainers, that they would need to have subscription. Oh, if you want to subscribe to me, you can subscribe to my podcast, and you can pay me directly. It's like, dude, suck my fucking dick. You're just a human being like anybody else. Get off the fucking high horse and release your content for free. Like, honestly, stop, Cenk. Stop. Don't try and delude people into thinking that you're doing right by them as you attempt to fucking lead them from your high horse in your ivory tower. I don't know how you fit that horse in that tower, but you did. And now it's going to die in there because there's no way to get a horse out of a high height, because you're a sadistic fucking animal torturer is what you are, Cenk Uygur, and no one's gonna follow you. No
I don't know
one.
anything about all that. I'm sure there's a story, but that's neither here nor there. You'll have to tell me some other time.
You know what I'm talking about, though. Like, he's not leading anybody anywhere. He's shooting himself in the foot. He might have good intentions, but.
So I had the conversation the other day that I got heated in, and you probably don't see me get heated very often, but
I want to hear this.
So I started bitching about TV.
Where? What was the?
I was in an internet video chat room talking to a couple people about it.
Were you on Tiny Chat?
No.
What? Pal Talk?
No, I can hash chat.
Oh, I can has. I didn't even know it was still active.
Yeah, it is. But that being said, I was in there having a conversation, and somebody was telling me that I should watch a show, and I was like, "Well, I don't pay for TV anymore. I don't have a cable subscription at all."
Yeah, you can just
so I went to the website to watch the episodes. Right?
What show was it?
They were fucking available. I don't even remember now. This is a few days ago. I forget what show it was, and I was like, you know what? Fuck that show.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
It's done. If you why do you even you should just put your shows on on. They can't be making very much money. Like a basic
They're
cable
not.
package is what, like $30?
Yeah,
Like
$30.
what percent? Like what cut does Comedy Central get of that?
Oh, it's fractions.
Like 20
Fractions.
cents? Like 20 cents?
20 cents a subscription.
I was like, you'd make more than that off me a month just me clicking on your ads or just me viewing your ads like on your TV shows.
I don't think it's their number one revenue stream though through actual subscriptions. I think it's through the ad space that they're selling for the shows.
Like, yeah, but the network's the ones making the money off that, right?
Right.
They're making the majority of the money off that.
Like Comedy Central, for example.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, but you're talking about the show creators. The thing is, the show creators don't really have, especially with Comedy Central, I hear they're a bunch of Nazis. Like, they won't even let people do anything. Like Ari Shaffir was quoted as saying by Bert Kreischer's big mouth, who's gonna fucking never fucking tell Bert Kreischer, here, note to self, if you want it to remain a secret, never tell Bert Kreischer, because he's gonna get drunk on some podcast and then open his big, dumb, fat, stupid fucking mouth and let the secret out like a fucking idiot. He was like, oh yeah, basically Ari fucking hates all of the executives over at Comedy Central. And, like, just totally fucking put this guy on Front Street. Now, fucking, guess what's going to happen? Some exec's going to listen to that, or it's going to get up to them, and they're going to call fucking Ari and be like, why are you saying this? I thought, like, we had a deal here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, not good. So, I don't know how much how much power these content creators that work for the networks really have at all.
Right.
In order to change that. So
here's the thing, though. Why are these cable TV channels even paying these cable companies? We all have the internet now.
Right.
Stop it.
Look at HBO.
Right. You know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. It's that we have our biggest problem in this country, media-wise, is that the people who deliver television content also own all the internet access, and we can't let that. I think we have to use Congress to force those two things apart.
Yeah, we need to break that.
I think that you shouldn't be allowed to own two different forms of media outlet simultaneously or something like that. Like if you own a TV channel, you shouldn't also be allowed to own a radio network or something. I don't know.
No,
but
like it comes down to utility. Like reclassifying the internet as a utility. It would be like saying this: you can't own the power company,
right,
and the and the television,
right?
Like, you can't own like multiple industries, like especially with the internet. Like electricity is a utility. Like yes, it's privatized, but there's a lot of government regulation around that because people need it. It's like a necessary thing in order to live, in this day and age. I'm not sure what the specifics are, but they're pretty specific. You know what I mean? Like there are rules around ownership of a utility. Now with the internet, with cable television or whatever, it's not that way right now. There's not enough, oversight insofar as that's concerned.
Well, I also think that it's kind of happening naturally anyway, because I'm willing to bet you right now that the majority of internet access is done via cell phone.
Yeah. Oh no, mobile is huge. You have to listen to Jason Calacanis's podcast, This Week in Startups, man. He really fucking lays it out pretty cleanly. Like, mobile is the fastest, biggest growing market, and will be as more and more people from third world countries. They're not buying computers. They're skipping an entire generation of technology and going straight to mobile. Right.
Which makes sense. I mean, I only use my desktop because of gaming. Yeah. Right. Outside that, I use my tablet.
Yeah.
Or my phone. Or whatever. Yeah. So it's... we all know where this is headed. In 10 years, we're all going to have contacts that project, a translucent HUD that has, that monitors your heart rate and the wind and, has like an overlaid GPS as you're walking through the street.
Right.
Maybe has a thing that pops up with registered sex offenders.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. Your registered sex offender radar. It's
Right.
constantly like farming your visual field to populate its like its facial recognition database.
Yeah.
That was a fear for some time, and I think it's pretty much proven that Facebook catalogs every photograph that you upload to it and has a massive database, literally a Facebook of a face database that it is accumulated, and now it can turn around and resell that information to government agencies,
Right.
third world dictatorships, whoever, whatever.
Well, do you remember that they tried to claim that if you uploaded something to them, that it became their intellectual property, but they
Yeah.
lost?
Yeah,
They
that was
lost that one
hilarious.
really bad.
Yeah, that was funny.
They're probably like, yeah, it was worth a shot.
Right.
Fucking assholes.
That's like the landlord of an apartment building like declaring eminent domain over all of your shit just because you rent an apartment from them.
Yeah, that's exactly the right metaphor.
What else is there though? I mean, so media has changed a lot and will continue to change, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that I'm perfect or we're perfect. Like I have my own issues. Like we discussed like before we started rolling and stuff like that. We have our own issues to work out. I have issues with like, turning away from the mic and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But I feel like at least we're not so presumptuous as to think like we know what's best, in order to reach the greatest number of people that we can. I feel like these people, they honestly think they have it figured out. They think that their way is the right way. And I'm like trying to tell them like for their own good. No, it's not. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, they definitely are. But, what are you going to do with all that? And
I don't know.
It just is what it is. And the free market of ideas, I think the internet is the most egalitarian place in history, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And it's like bullshit definitely walks here.
It's more, I think it affects, it's a greater equalizer than guns are on some level. I mean, if you take different examples though, like I heard someone, it was on The Fighter and the Kid, or it was on the Rogan show, one of these podcasts, they were talking about how somebody's kid was complaining that they're getting bullied at school, and they were like, well, why don't you just oh no, it was on Rogan podcast, fucking Red Band's fucking genius ass hatching another genius Red Band plot, said that what you should do is just make up a bunch of fake shit about the bully and then post it on the website. And I'm thinking to myself, because I was bullied as a kid, and I bullied. I did both, or I experienced both. I know what it's like to be the bullied one. If you put that information on the website, there's a very short list generally for a bully. Like, he's going to come right for you because he's going to think that you were the one to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's no way to, like, kind of fake that shit or, like, engineer that without leaving some kind of breadcrumb.
It's kind of interesting. He brought up guns as an analogy. Because I was just thinking about how technology solves problems and, what's been in the media. That's kind of a perfect segue to what I was kind of thinking about 5 minutes ago. Because I was looking at earlier, and they actually have developed bulletproof T-shirts.
Oh yeah, I've seen this material
with nano stuff. Yeah, and it's like, well, the obvious solution to gun violence and terrorism is for all of us to have our mech suits.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if the bullet's still gonna fuck you up. If it hits your bulletproof shirt, yeah, it'll absorb the impact. It won't penetrate, but it is going to fucking bruise the shit. It's gonna send a shockwave through your soft organs, so quickly that some damage is gonna happen. You're gonna be internally bleeding, although you might not be hemorrhaging.
It's got to be better than taking the bullet, though, right?
Yeah, I think so. There might be some cases where, depending on the bullet, like it would be better if the bullet just went in and out. But usually, 9 times out of 10, probably better just to not take it inside.
Well, you got to figure that the overwhelming majority of people who are shot are probably shot with like a 9 millimeter, right?
I don't know what the most frequently is. It a 9 mil? Probably, right?
Yeah, and I would think that the shirt would be very effective against 9 millimeters.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably 9 millimeter, right?
Right. But it's interesting though. How long is it before they are able to use nanotechnology, then put like some kind of reverse magnetism on the shirt that operates off solar that helps slow down the speed of the bullet?
I mean, there's no ceiling on like, but then what's
Yeah.
gonna happen is like, we'll just evolve a new way to murder each other with
Yeah.
like direct energy weapons. You know what I mean? Okay,
Yep.
so you got a magnetic shirt that can reflect a fucking, a dense metal slug that's hurtling toward you at twice the speed of sound.
Right.
But can you stop a fucking laser? No. Like, good luck. I guess you could just like hold up a mirror if you wanted to.
Yeah, so I was about to say,
have a
look at
mirror
my
suit.
look at my suit of mirrors.
The thing with the lasers is like they're so accurate, you know?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that, I think I'd rather eat the laser than have random assholes fixing their hair on my chest.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then it's like you have to just carry Windex with you everywhere. It's just not good.
Windex. Yeah, it becomes like that's like your new gear. Because if you don't have Windex on your shit, it can collect the laser energy and fucking sear through your flesh.
Yeah.
The laser technology is pretty. It hasn't been. We're not to the point of like Star Wars where like, you could fucking murder someone with a laser blast. We're not there yet. We do have laser systems which can focus and concentrate laser energy on targets to the point where they inevitably like blow up, like they cook off, they reach the cook-off point and explode. But we don't have it where like in a man-portable system where you can just like shoot, and it's like, okay, you just fucking killed something. We're not there yet.
Yeah. What do you think of what do you think's gonna happen when terrorists get to the level of sophistication that they can couple projects? Like, say, maybe they could take the genome and then apply nanotechnology to alter viruses to maybe target specific gene patterns.
I mean, this is the same.
Is that sci-fi, or is that real?
This is the same thing that's been talked about since time immemorial with like the AIDS virus was specifically genetically targeted to eliminate homosexuals, or like viruses that you could build that would only target Ashkenazi Jews who had like certain mutations in the genome or whatever. I think this risk has always been with us, but I just don't think, like, I recently interviewed Erico Lopez, who's one of the engineers at Robots Without Borders, and he's the creator of the Starlight operating system. And he was talking about how, like, intelligence, it plateaus at a point where, exercising, like, such like what's the word, what are the words that I'm looking for, like looking to make something like that is just, it's not even in your sphere of reality. Like, it's in a completely separate weird world. I know that you have a counter argument to this in like Werner von Braun, like making fucking prisoners like stand guard in front of his missile factory or whatever until they died. You could say that, like, just because someone is really intelligent does not make them moral, but
Right.
I'd like to think that were the case,
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that they had nanotech back then.
I don't think they had nanotech, and I don't think it was as easy as it is today, where you can go on a fucking YouTube and find out how to make something.
And get the whole genome.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I was just arguing with some UK person earlier, and he's like, you need to ban ban guns in the United States, confiscate them all, and I'm like, there's more guns than people. You would run out of cops before you even got 10% of them, assuming even 50% of the cops were willing to try that.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be sending them on a suicide mission. I'm like, there's like probably 30, 40 million rednecks. No offense to rednecks, but you know.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah,
and they're
mostly the
fundamentally misunderstand. They fundamentally do not understand. People from the UK do not get what we're dealing with in the United States in terms of the scale, the sheer scale of it. We have like 3 times as many people and like about 40 times as much land area than they do.
I mean, it's not even that. I told him, I'm like, you're about to lose it in the United States. Or not in the United States, in the UK. You're about to lose your gun control. And he's like, that's bullshit. La, 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 la. You have no idea what you're talking about. And because like before that, I was talking about how they don't have... They're like, we don't get illegal guns here. I'm like, yeah, that's because you don't have the cartels at the border. You don't have the Crips and the Bloods. And you don't have that. And that's not where all the illegal guns come from. But let me tell you, I guarantee you that's got to be at least a third of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I told him, I'm like, what are you going to do when I can 3D print guns all over the UK?
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. And he's like, that's so far away. And then I showed him the Vice documentary on how it's already being done.
Yeah, no, it's like 2 or 3 years old at this point.
Right.
That guy's a dilettante. Tiny Chat and like Icon Has Chat and Stickam was like constant dilettante wars where you're dealing with people who just have no idea. And I'll be the first to say, I myself, I often play the role of the dilettante, like pretty much in everything that I talk about. But at least I am like cognizant enough to the point where I will readily admit that, you know, and that doesn't necessarily justify my bullshit, but at least it gives me some room there to maneuver. These people get on those websites and talk like they're fucking the no shit like authorities on it. And you're like, no, I'm looking at a study right now that proves all of your bullshit wrong. And they're like not hearing it, you know?
Yeah, I get that a lot. And, you know, it just is what it is. The best thing about the internet is that it's actually easier for me to choose who I don't interact with than it is in person.
How fucked up is that you can fucking click and ignore someone and they're literally gone from your life, but there's no option like that in IRL.
Right, and the thing is that they think that they're going to convince everybody else who's in the room that just by saying, oh, see, he's only doing that because he can't win the argument, that everybody's just going to believe that because they say it.
Yeah. And then, like, some minutes go by and no one cares. Like, everyone is just over it. Or just over it instantly. I mean, I think that's, like, the worst is, like, though, when if people were to use the ignore function as a means to passively resist you, or, like, to passively aggress you, rather.
Yeah.
But it's worse when they try to convince other people to ignore them. Like, if I'm going to ignore someone in a chat room, I just ignore them. You know, it just happens. And there's no fanfare. I don't, like, try and campaign for it. Like, I just fucking click ignore. Boom. Done. Like, that's it. And I use it sparingly. I use it very sparingly. I hardly ever ignore people.
Yeah. I do when I believe that it isn't their real intent to communicate.
When you feel like this person is just trying to troll you?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember somebody who went by the name of Stizer, for instance.
Oh, God. DJ Stizer. You're just an idiot. You're just an idiot, man. An idiot.
I wanted to kill that guy. He's like, I bet you didn't know that Columbus wasn't the first one who discovered America. And before I could even answer, he's like, of course you didn't because you're a stupid American cunt.
Yeah, right, exactly. He's like, you don't even know about quantum physics, man. Quantum entanglement, man.
We are the Higgs boson.
Yeah, right.
But he believes in ancient aliens.
Yeah, that guy. He's a scouser. That's what they call them. He's a fucking scouser, which is basically just like a piece of garbage from Scotland or from Liverpool.
Yeah, there's another name too, like a chav.
Chav is for like a wigger.
Well, Jordan called him a chav.
Oh, if
But
Jordan called him a chav, then he's a chav. I'm sure he's quite chavvy. I'm
yeah,
not sure.
Rico Chave.
Rico Chavvy. Rico Scouser.
Yeah. I don't know.
That guy's a douchebag. Everybody
So
knows it.
right.
Until,
So
until you've experienced sensitive Stizer, when he gets like real melancholy and shit, and then you're
yeah,
like, oh, he's just misunderstood. And then he turns up again, and you're like, fuck this guy.
yeah, I've said a lot of fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Like, there's just people on the internet that I just can't take and don't have to.
Yeah,
Like,
right. Why suffer them when you can literally kill them from your
right.
digital world with a click of a button?
It's like I don't understand why anybody listens to The Amazing Atheist.
I don't know. I mean, I
Well, I
listened
mean,
to him. I haven't watched him in a long time, man. I'll be honest. Like,
well, let's be real though. Like, none of the arguments are original, and you can listen to someone who gives you a more substantive narrative with all the vitriol.
yeah, but it was the Penn Gillette like delivery that I think really draws people in. Like someone that was over the top, kind of pompous in his own way, and what's the word? Like gregarious or belligerent in his manner.
See, I I don't know that I've ever gotten that read off Penn Jillette.
What?
Unless he was doing it tongue in cheek.
Oh no, Penn is fucking. You don't think Penn Gillette is at all has any amount of pomp in his delivery? Like there's
Well,
tremendous amounts of pomp.
you have to realize that he's trying to present himself like a carny.
Right. And that's how the Amazing Atheist presents himself. And the Amazing Atheist is like the less intelligent, less refined, but I get the same type of feel off watching Amazing Atheist that I do watching Penn Jillette, only Penn Jillette's like much more polished.
I think that Penn Jillette's a humble guy.
I think he is too. I think
I don't think that the Amazing Atheist is.
I think that the Amazing Atheist is crippled. It suffers from crippling self-confidence issues.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess that's why I was like, wait a minute, I need to throw a pause on what you're saying, because I think that distinction between those two people, because like when you say there's a lot of pomp in his voice, it's like that pompous ass type of a feel, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's not what you were meaning to convey.
No, that's
to me.
that's what I was meaning. And
Yeah.
you don't get that from Penn Jillette because, you know what he's saying. He's just speaking the truth. He's just fucking saying it how it is. You know what I mean?
Right. And he never has like that "I pwned you" kind of a thing going on.
yeah. I guess. Yeah.
TJ's a man child.
Here's the question I have. Okay, we're talking about ignoring people, right?
Right.
What do you think of people who knee-jerk kick ban, ignore people, a la in Mendham? There was a period of time where if you said anything contrary to what in Mendham was saying or the position that he espoused or whatever, if you were contrary in any way, he would immediately kick you, immediately ignore you on YouTube, Stickam, whatever it was.
If I wanted to hear Menhem's perspective, I would have just watched that Beauty and the Beast TV show from the 90s.
Oh, God. Is that...
Well, like, if you're going to kick from a Menhem room, you should pat yourself on the back and be like, or no, you should send him $5 for doing you a favor for not having to listen to his shit. Like, he had nothing worth listening to that I ever heard him say.
I think in Menhem was good in that he was anti-extreme theist, but he was also, I don't know, he left this weird room, this weird wiggle room where like people who espouse theistic beliefs could exist unmolested. You know what I mean? Like there's other people like AAL who just go all in on that ass. You know what I mean? Like they find a theist and they just rape.
But he doesn't even, he's one of those people that I would just blanket ignore because no intent to actually communicate.
My issue with in Mendham was namely his what did he call it? Anti-natalist? His anti-natalism, which is that he espouses this belief, for those who don't understand, don't know what anti-natalism is. Anti-natalism is the belief that someone shouldn't even exist, like that human life itself is bad, basically.
Well, you know, he's also a homophobe.
That's true. Yeah.
And let me throw this out peripherally. If you subscribe to theological non-cognitivism, you're a pussy.
As opposed to what? As opposed to atheism? It's more truthful. The atheists don't even know the proper distinction, like the proper category proper categorization for what they are. They call themselves atheists, but they're not. They're really the real ones. Yeah.
Well, like, so here's I think we would have gotten into this a little bit at one point, but the A prefix, if somebody's apolitical, they're not anti-political. A means non. It's a negating prefix, right?
Right.
And so atheism is non-theism. It's the absence of a belief. And there's a difference between an absence of a belief and disbelief, isn't there?
Yes. Yes, there is, but it's the atheist denotation or whatever that proceeds forward from the first block that is theism. Like you need theism first, then you proceed forward, then you get atheism. So, but to call yourself a theological non-cognitivist means that there is no theist block. There is no atheist block because there is no theist block, meaning that there is not even no belief in the existence of God.
Well, hold on. I have to back you up because I'm not sure I agree with that.
Okay.
What I would say is that everyone is inherently atheistic because it's non-theism. It's just the it's non-belief as opposed to disbelief. And there's a difference between those two things. It's interesting because I think the problem arises in the fact that people use agnostic when talking about belief when gnosis is actually knowledge. It's so you can be an atheist and an agnostic simultaneously. Because as an atheist, I don't know if there's God or not, and agnostic says I don't know that anyone can know. I don't know if it's a knowable thing.
Yeah, that's what I am. I'm an atheist agnostic or agnostic atheist.
And so, a lot of the people like AAL are strong atheists,
theological non-cognitivists.
Well, I mean, theological non-cognitivism is the idea that the idea of God can't even really be formulated by the human mind.
What? I thought it was that the theological non-cognitivist means that like they don't even think that there is a God. Not that they can't imagine what a God might be like.
No, like theological non-cognitivism, it says hold on.
Theological
it's also known as agnosticism.
Agnosticism.
Right. It means it's the argument that religious language, words such as God, are not cognitively meaningful.
Oh, so that still proceeds forward from the idea that theism exists is like the first cause. That's the thing, is like there's no word to describe what the atheist actually is relative to God. I mean, you could just say person or whatever, human being.
So, it's just all an atheist is someone who lacks a belief in God. I'm actually an apatheist. Which is it basically means I don't know if there's a God and I really don't give a shit if there's a God. Yeah. I don't, it's not meaningful to my life. In other words, the theological question.
Right, yeah.
I don't have, so that's kind of apatheism. But no, so disbelief and non-belief. Non-belief says I don't have a belief one way or the other, and disbelief is saying this is not true. There is no God.
How do you how do you reflect that? Like linguistically,
So,
what's semantically? What do you say?
see, the problem with anti-theism is that it doesn't cover that, because anti-theism means that you think that theism should be wiped off the map,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be a strong. I think strong atheism is it.
Strong atheism.
Right. Strong atheism is the statement is there is no God.
That's kind of accepted within the community. Strong
Right.
atheist, weak atheist, whatever. But I still see it as like
Well, the problem
it's
is
not
that
appropriate.
they're jumping the gap inside a definition between belief and knowledge again. Because when you say there is no God,
Uh-huh.
you're trying to make it as a statement of fact, which is gnosis, not belief.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I think we need to come up with something different. We need to get rid of these words because they have so much baggage. I think
Yeah.
it's funny when Christians say you atheists, because atheists don't even have any conception, 99% of them, about any of these, epistemic
It's like saying you
issues.
nihilists.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? Like these people obviously don't care about anything. Hence nihilism. Like
Right.
hand
That's
these
the thing
people
is,
dictionaries.
yeah, nihilism's another difficult one.
That's the nihilism and atheism suffer from the same failures where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you say that you don't believe in anything, but that in and of itself is
Is a belief.
yeah, you violate the law of non-contradiction. Like you can't have
Right.
your cake and eat it too. It's either one way or the other. And to
Right.
say that you don't believe in anything, you wouldn't even call yourself that. It's like a Taoist. It's like the Tao. Someone who says that they follow the Tao. Well, the Tao that can be described by words is not the eternal Tao. So obviously, you're not a Taoist. You're saying that you are because literally there's no language available to you to to explain yourself, to justify your existence.
There's actually problems that happen when you try to use existence as a property. I don't want to get into them because I'm not really brushed up on them, but I have notes about it, and there's actually a paper about all the logical pitfalls that happen when you try to use existence as a property,
Interesting.
and it's just not good.
Wait a minute. How is this using existence as a property? You mean like atheist or
No, I
whatever,
mean just
Democrat, Republican, like
no, like ontological. Like, do unicorns exist or do unicorns not exist? Because you run into this weird place where you have to say that everything must exist because it's conceivable, and if the universe goes on infinitely, it's going to be conceived. And it's so weird because people don't have. There's so much discontinuity in especially in in materialist neuroscientist people, because they don't understand philosophy, so they don't really know what they're doing when they're using language. And so there's like the reductive materialist view, right? They'll claim that everything is physics, but then they'll claim that unicorns don't exist. Well, it's like, well, that thought is constructed from physics, and if it's physics and it happens in the material, see, like they get into this weird place of where they backdoor justify mind-body distinction by claiming that objects of consciousness aren't also equally physically represented in the brain as a thing.
We need to go back. You said that I said that atheists. What do you mean? Like by atheists, like when you consider existence as a property,
Right.
like for example, an atheist calls himself an atheist. They're
I don't
stating
mean on that level.
what?
I don't mean on that level.
You mean on the ontological level, and you're
Yeah.
talking about just pure existence, but isn't that ontological for someone to say that I am a Republican? I'm stating ontologically that
those
I
are-
am a Republican.
Those aren't ontological properties. Ontological properties are properties that are necessary for something to exist.
So how would you refer to yourself ontologically? That's the question I'm asking. Is like
Consciousness, life,
consciousness
being
as life.
being alive is an ontological property that's required for my continued existence, right? From an atheistic perspective.
Right, but what about like someone, for example, who calls himself an atheist? I mean, that is as directly connected to their identity as
But it's
them
not.
as their
But
life. It's just
but
further degrees of magnitude removed. That's all.
it's
Like
not
maybe a few
required for their
degrees.
existence, though. And the other problem is that atheism is contingent. It could be otherwise, right? You don't have to be an atheist. And if all of a sudden they found God and became a theist, they wouldn't cease to exist, would they?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying existence as a proof. So this is kind of a red herring. 'Cause we're talking about identity. Like, what do you mean by ontology? You run into problems when you start
Because I was
saying
talking
that
about
existence is a
right.
property. Like, what's an
Well, 'cause I'm-
example of that?
Well, because I'm talking about theological non-cognitivism, right? They're saying that God is an unintelligible thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I was talking about how it's a weird thing for someone who's a hard materialist to hold that view, and that
Right, yeah.
they make a distinction between objects of consciousness and objects of reality, as if objects of consciousness aren't real. And yet they'll tell you that it physically exists in the brain, but they try to deny qualia, the subjective nature of experience. They'll say that, they'll make like these deflationary remarks like love isn't real, it's just a chemical.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Well, then everything's a chemical and nothing's real. What are you saying? Stop.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
And it relates back to like the theological non-cognitivism because they're like making the same non sequiturs.
Well, they're not really theological non-cognitivists. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what it comes down to. We have a failure of the language to be able to describe the phenomena that's currently at work. That's
I don't think we agree on what the phenomena is, and that's the problem. And I think we don't agree on what the phenomena is because people are interpreting various different phenomena to mean the same thing, which is God.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord works in mysterious ways. They can attribute anything to God's unseen hand, right?
we're blowing the minds of our listeners right now. Like, there are just brains exploding in cars and on trains, like, all over the nation. All over the nation, XJ.
If we had that reach, it would be my mind that was blown.
Yeah.
Maybe someday, right?
Yeah, no, I think that the whole theist-atheist disagreement is semantics. I think it's all chalked up to semantics. You have scientists call it the universe, call it whatever the fuck you want. You have theists, call it God, Allah, whatever, right. Hashem. There's no difference. There's no difference. These are substantively, ultimately, the same fucking thing.
Well, hold on a minute, though. Let me throw this in the mix. The reason that they're semantical arguments is because these people don't know what they mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And not only do they not know what they mean, they don't know what the words they're using mean. They just take like some colloquial.
And they always snap to disagree with each other, as opposed to start. You're supposed to, when you get into a theological debate, you have to first define your terms. You start from the agnostic step. The agnostic step is the point where both of you give your definitions for God, and then, 9 times out of 10, you won't have a disagreement. You won't have an argument. Because you'll be basically using different words to describe the same phenomena.
Do you know how many times I've been accused of straw manning because someone doesn't fucking know how to use a dictionary? The way they're using the words, I've never even heard them use that way colloquially, and it's like they're just like they have their own weird interpretations of these words and they use them that way. And then when I correct them, they're like, "You're putting words in my mouth. That's not what I mean at all." And like, you don't know how often I get in these battles with people, and I'm like, "How can you be so?" I'm like, I'm not putting words in your mouth. You, sir, are completely ignorant to the implication of the words and the way that you're using them. Yeah. You're implying things that you are completely unaware of.
If you find yourself in that position, you basically fucked up because you're arguing with an idiot. And like Gunny Melton always used to say, what did Gunny Melton always used to say? Never argue with an idiot because he'll drag you down to his level and beat you with experience. So, you're kind of fucked there. I mean, there's no There's nothing in it. I mean, unless you like to argue, but you're never going to convince them otherwise, and it's not gonna matter unless there's a chick in the room and you're trying to look like you got a fucking big dick, like you got a big hog, because you want to set up some internet loving. Maybe you would go in on him and make him look like a fool, and then she'd be like, "Oh, I want your big dick, daddy," and then she'd come over to you. But generally, no.
I use it as a teaching experience to everyone who's observing. Because I start breaking it down and I say why this is happening, and I get into, the nitty gritty of it as best as I can without, being pedantic. That's the other thing. Like, if people use words, I get accused of being pedantic when I start calling them on this shit.
When you use big words?
No, not even when I use big words. They're just accusing me of pedantizing, like when I start picking at the fact that they're using a word all wrong and that it's confusing and that they don't even know what they mean by what they're saying. And they're like, you're just turning this into a pedantic semantics argument because you can't win on the merits of the facts.
And you're like, no, actually, I just put stock in the fucking language. Like maybe you would if you knew what the fuck we were talking about.
Right. They act like you're catching them in grammar Nazi terms.
There is a fallacy though. I forget what it was. It's not moving the goalposts. It's when your criteria for acceptable evidence is too high. Your plead. I forgot what it was. It's like special pleading or something like that.
Well, special pleading is like Anselm's argument and the rebuttal, like the ontological argument for God. Mm-hmm. The idea that God exists, yada yada yada. Like, nothing is greater than something that exists. So if God exists in mind, and God is perfect, then God must exist because for God to be perfection, he would have to exist because things that exist are things that exist in the real are better than things that just exist in thought. And there's an argument that went back, and then the guy's like, no, you're just special pleading because you're like making God the exception to all the other rules. It's like God's the only time that this is because it's God.
Well, you can't flip it like that. It has to be. Yeah. It has to go both ways.
That happens in epiphenomena too. Like epiphenomena is like a form of dualism where it says that.
Did you go to the fucking St. Michael's School of St. Thomas Aquinas? Like, what the fuck? Like, how do you know all this shit? Well, it's a continuum fallacy. The continuum fallacy is when you're required to present an unreasonable amount of specificity in order to win an argument.
Well, one more time, what's that called again? Because I don't think I've heard it by that name.
The continuum fallacy.
Right. I think that happens. I think that fallacy is used brutally in climate change debate.
Oh yeah.
That tactic.
Yeah, probably. This was my one piece of advice. We're at the hour mark too, so I don't want to put this to bed. But one of the last parting, the one thing that I can remember, I can take away from Ken Cherbuck, who was a very famous internet personality on Stickam for some time, and he would engage in many of these debates, and he was like the grandfatherly, old, wizened, white-bearded wise man. He said that if you wanted to invest time in something, one thing that you would invest time in is to memorize two lists. One, the list of cognitive biases, and the list of logical fallacies. To memorize those and to know when you're encountering a situation where one is present or when you may be succumbing to one yourself,
like confirmation bias is the biggest one,
Yeah, that is.
Colloquially known as cherry picking.
Yeah, we look only for the pieces of evidence that are going to support our argument, and we're naturally allergic to anything that might speak to the contrary. Yeah,
real quick.
Yeah.
My closing thought would be to tack on to what Ken said, and to say that Occam's razor, do not multiply things unnecessarily.
Parsimony.
I would say that the biggest thing that you can do to help yourself is do not reduce things unnecessarily.
Yeah, reductio ad absurdum.
Yep. well, reductio ad absurdum is like that's something a little bit different. That's like where like if I keep adding $1, if I'm poor with $1 and I keep adding $1, at what point do I become rich?
Right.
And it's like meant to show the absurdity of arbitrary value.
Okay.
Right. But anyway, yeah, no, because reduction is like a sin in philosophy. It's a dismissive thing. You're not considering possibilities, and you're doing it probably because of one of those cognitive biases.
And yet, all of science, it could be said, is the result of deduction and reducing things to
Well,
Western reductionism.
Well,
I mean, no, reductionism. Like,
yeah.
this is what all of our technology is presumably based on, is reductionism.
Well, you see, but science doesn't dismiss. I would say that there's a difference between reduction and elimination with trial by error. Reductionism is when you dismiss something at hand, and I don't think that science generally does that for the most part. It's like that sort of it's what's the word I'm looking for? Fuck. Shit.
Reductio ad absurdum.
No, it's not
Leviosa. Expelioso.
Rigor. That's the word I'm looking for.
Rigor.
Right, rigor. Rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis. Good to go. Well, this has been edifying. We got to shit on a bunch of podcast personalities, which is always great. It was terrible, all those things that you said about Adam Carolla and fucking Bert Kreischer, XJ. But that's okay.
Yeah, how dare he? How dare Bert Kreischer? Oh, I got confused because Bert Kreischer, he committed the mortal sin of being on Joe Rogan and Joey Diaz in the same week.
Oh, is that a mortal sin?
It's gotta be. I mean, what a fucking podcast.
That's what it is.
Talk.
Yeah, that's what we'll blame
Confused.
it on.
Right, telling the same stories on both podcasts. Shame
way
on
to blow that fucking paycheck for Ari, Bert Kreischer. That was real smooth of you. Anyway, we'll pick it up next time. Thank you very much, XJ.
Yep. All right.
World peace.